In the serene hills of Colorado, the small town of Silver Ridge was known for its tight-knit community and quiet charm. But on an otherwise ordinary evening, the town's police station became the backdrop for an unsettling mystery. A man named Victor Caldwell entered the station in a state of visible distress. His phone had died, and his face was etched with worry. He approached Officer Samuel Carter, the town's lead investigator, and began recounting his troubling story. Victor had recently moved to Silver Ridge from Chicago and was still adjusting to the slower pace of life. He explained that his wife, Maria, had been missing since the previous night, and he couldn't contact her. Officer Carter, however, appeared unconvinced, jokingly remarking that in a town like Silver Ridge, it was more common for livestock to go missing than people. Victor, undeterred by the officer's skepticism, insisted that something was terribly wrong. He feared Maria had been in an accident or encountered foul play. He pointed out that Maria wasn't the type to disappear without a word. When Officer Carter asked for a recent photo of Maria, Victor admitted that his phone's battery was dead, but promised to provide one later. After some back and forth, Carter reluctantly agreed to start a preliminary report. Victor revealed that Maria worked for a nonprofit called Hope Horizons and had always been dedicated to helping people. He shared that he had been away for a week in New York on legal work. He was an attorney and had returned just last night. Victor added that it was his birthday the day before, and Maria had planned a surprise for him. The house had been beautifully decorated, but Maria was nowhere to be found. Hoping to avoid alarming their daughter Emily, who lived in a boarding school nearby, Victor decided to visit her alone. Emily had been thrilled to see him, but immediately asked about her mother. Victor lied, saying Maria had come down with a fever and couldn't join them. Emily, however, didn't seem convinced. She pleaded with Victor to bring her home, expressing her unhappiness with staying at the boarding school. Victor promised he would discuss it with Maria. They celebrated his birthday with a small cake Emily had arranged, but the joy was short-lived. The next morning, Victor returned home hoping to find Maria, but there was still no sign of her. When Victor shared this with Officer Carter, he dismissed it again, saying it was too soon to panic, and reminding Victor of the 24-hour waiting period before officially filing a missing person report. Frustrated but determined, Victor resolved to do whatever it took to find his wife. As Victor returned home, he found Maria's younger sister, Sophie, waiting for him. Sophie was equally worried, questioning Victor about Maria's sudden disappearance. Victor suggested creating a missing person poster to spread the word around town. Meanwhile, Officer Carter decided to begin his investigation. He contacted the director of Hope Horizons, who described Maria as a kind and compassionate woman. However, the director mentioned something unusual. Maria had vanished once before, only to reappear days later in Chicago without providing much explanation. The stage was set for a chilling and suspenseful journey as the mystery surrounding Maria's disappearance deepened, leaving Victor, Sophie, and Officer Carter to uncover the truth lurking beneath the surface of Silver Ridge. The following day, Officer Carter arrived at Victor's home to discuss Maria's case further. As he entered, he mistook Sophie for Maria, but she quickly corrected him, clarifying that she was Maria's sister. Officer Carter mentioned that Maria's boss at Hope Horizons had revealed she had disappeared once before, resurfacing in Chicago without explanation. Victor defended Maria, insisting she hadn't run away but had left temporarily for personal reasons. They decided to search Maria's room for clues. Amid her belongings, they discovered brochures from various schools, which Sophie explained Maria had been researching for Emily. With no concrete evidence found, Officer Carter left to continue his investigation. That evening, as Sophie designed a missing person poster for Maria, Victor received a call from Officer Carter. He informed Victor that he would need to accompany a deputy to Denver to identify a body at the morgue. This news sent a chill down Victor's spine, and he reluctantly agreed, fearing the worst. Victor and Deputy Ramirez made the tense journey to Denver, where Victor's anxiety grew with every mile. At the morgue, Victor braced himself to see the body, but was overcome with relief when he realized it wasn't Maria. He returned to Silver Ridge, holding on to hope that Maria was still alive. When Victor arrived home the next morning, He was shocked to find his front door slightly ajar. Inside, Officer Carter was waiting for him, along with Maria. She had returned home, apologizing for her sudden departure. She admitted that she shouldn't have left after their argument and explained that she had needed time to clear her head. While Sophie was overjoyed to see her sister, Victor was far from relieved. He stood frozen, unable to hide his unease. His reaction puzzled both Maria and Officer Carter. When asked why he seemed upset, Victor bluntly stated that this woman wasn't his wife. Everyone in the room froze in confusion. Maria attempted to calm Victor, reminding him of their life together and apologizing for any misunderstanding. Officer Carter asked Victor to show him a photo of Maria for comparison. Victor retrieved his phone, but to his shock, the photos of Maria matched the woman standing before him. "This isn't possible," Victor muttered. He accused someone of tampering with the photos on his phone. Desperate for answers, Victor checked Maria's profile on the Hope Horizons website, only to find that the same woman's photo was displayed there as well. Maria, trying to ease Victor's growing paranoia, spoke about intimate details of their life together, his childhood memories, his late mother's illness, and their shared milestones. But Victor refused to believe her, claiming that advanced technology like AI could have been used to manipulate her appearance. Still unconvinced, Victor remembered the missing posters Sophie had designed the previous night. He fetched them, only to find that they too featured the same woman. His disbelief deepened as he scoured their wedding album, only to find the same face in every photo. Despite all the evidence, Victor accused the woman of being an imposter. He threatened legal action, declaring that she had some hidden agenda. Maria tried to defuse the situation by recounting personal stories that only the real Maria would know, but Victor's paranoia remained unshaken. The tension escalated when Victor asked Maria to explain her 2-day absence. She claimed she had driven to a resort in Aspen to clear her mind. Victor demanded to know where the car was, and Maria hesitated. Officer Carter interjected, explaining that Maria had already reported the car stolen during her absence. Sophie, attempting to mediate, acknowledged Maria as her sister, further frustrating Victor. Even the family dog seemed to recognize Maria, wagging its tail in excitement. To Victor, this was proof of how deep the deception ran. "This woman has an agenda," Victor declared. "She's here to destroy my life." Officer Carter warned Victor to tread carefully, reminding him that he was a respected lawyer and any erratic behavior could damage his reputation. Finally, Carter proposed conducting a more thorough investigation, asking Victor to give him time to dig deeper into the case. That evening, Maria tried to rebuild trust by preparing Victor's favorite coffee. She apologized for their previous fight and promised to avoid arguments in the future. But Victor remained cold and distant, watching her every move with suspicion. His mind raced with theories, determined to uncover the truth about the woman claiming to be his wife. The next morning, Victor and Maria went to the police station where Officer Carter planned to resolve Victor's suspicions with a set of personal questions. These questions were designed by Victor, who believed only the real Maria could answer them correctly. Maria confidently answered every question, recalling intimate details about their life together, from Victor's childhood quirks to family events. When asked what Victor enjoyed doing after their private moments, Maria, initially embarrassed, hesitated before saying he loved cuddling. The answer was correct, further frustrating Victor. Then came a trick question. Officer Carter asked Maria which leg Victor had broken in an accident 4 years ago. Maria replied that Victor had never broken a leg, a statement that was true, leaving Victor visibly agitated. During this exchange, Victor received a call from his daughter, Emily. When Maria asked to speak with Emily, the girl hesitantly agreed, but immediately noticed something off about her mother's voice. Maria brushed it off, claiming exhaustion from her recent trip. Later, Victor visited Emily's boarding school to bring her home, but the principal refused, citing her upcoming exams. Frustrated, Victor returned to find Officer Carter at his house again, sharing coffee with Maria and Sophie. Maria handed Victor a cup, but he refused to drink it, suspecting it had been tampered with. When he passed the cup to Sophie, Maria quickly knocked it from her hands, explaining that Sophie was allergic to coffee. This only heightened Victor's paranoia. "She's trying to poison me," he accused. Officer Carter, now confident that Maria was the real deal, proposed a final test to settle the matter, checking for a scar on Maria's back from an old accident. Reluctantly, Maria agreed. In private, she showed Victor the scar, which matched perfectly with his memories. Victor was left stunned. When Officer Carter asked why Maria had hesitated, she explained that the scar reminded Victor of the accident in which his mother had died. She didn't want to reopen old wounds. Victor remained unconvinced. That night, he snuck into Emily's boarding school to take her home, ignoring the principal's warnings. The incident caused panic among the staff, prompting them to report him to Officer Carter. The next morning, Victor brought Emily to the police station, where she immediately ran to Maria and hugged her, calling her Mom. Victor's disbelief deepened as everyone, including Emily, seemed to accept Maria without question. Even the principal, who had followed up on the complaint, recognized Maria and vouched for her authenticity. Victor's desperation spiraled. He confronted Officer Carter, claiming that Maria had hypnotized everyone. "She's not who she says she is," he yelled. Carter, growing frustrated, suggested that Victor's mental state might be affecting his judgment. That evening, Maria tried once again to reconcile with Victor, preparing his favorite meal and reminding him of their happy times. Victor broke down and hugged her, apologizing for his coldness but still harboring doubts. Determined to find answers, Victor approached Carter with a bold idea: a DNA test. He proposed collecting hair samples from Maria and Emily to confirm whether Maria was truly Emily's mother. Carter hesitated, warning Victor that such a test wasn't to be taken lightly. But Victor was adamant, believing science would finally prove him right. Meanwhile, Victor hired a private investigator, David Pratt, to follow Maria. David agreed, asking for an advance payment and promising to uncover Maria's secrets. That evening, Victor searched Maria's belongings and found a strange diary filled with cryptic numbers. He took photos of the pages and tried to decipher them online, but found nothing. David soon reported suspicious activity. Maria had visited Sophie's cafe with a pen drive and used it on her laptop. She then handed the pen drive back to Sophie. Intrigued, Victor ordered David to retrieve the pen drive at any cost. David managed to steal Maria's bag, but the pen drive was encrypted, and repeated attempts to access it corrupted the data. Furious, Victor presented the pen drive to Officer Carter, who suggested confronting Maria directly. At the police station, Maria identified the pen drive as hers and explained it contained work-related documents. However, the corrupted pen drive yielded no answers, leaving Victor even more agitated. By now, Dr. Susan Knight, a psychiatrist, entered the picture. She revealed to Victor that she had been treating him for 2 years for paranoia and anger management issues. Victor denied her claims, accusing her of conspiring with Maria. Dr. Knight warned that if Victor didn't resume treatment, his condition could worsen, possibly leading to institutionalization. That night, Victor confronted Maria again. She admitted she couldn't continue living in constant suspicion and demanded a divorce. Victor laughed bitterly, saying, "How can we get divorced when we were never married?" Still, he agreed to sign the papers, thinking it would get her out of his life. The next day, David called Victor with a shocking revelation. Maria had been married to another man just 2 years ago. Thrilled by this new lead, Victor felt his suspicions were finally validated. Now, all he needed was the DNA test to confirm what he had suspected all along. The woman living in his home was not his wife. Victor's suspicions reached a fever pitch as he waited for the results of the DNA test. In the meantime, Dr. Susan Knight called him back to her clinic, urging him to undergo further evaluation. She explained that his mental state was deteriorating and without treatment, he could become a danger to himself and others. Victor refused, insisting that he was perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Maria's lawyer, Daniel Harper, arrived at Victor's house with divorce papers. To Victor's shock, the papers granted Maria full custody of Emily, allowing Victor only 6 hours of visitation per month until Emily turned 18. Daniel explained that they had ample evidence of Victor's unstable behavior, including his late-night intrusion at Emily's boarding school. Furious, Victor accused Maria of trying to steal his daughter. Later that night, Victor confronted Emily, pleading with her to stay with him. Emily, visibly torn, ultimately chose to stay with Maria. In a fit of rage, Victor locked Maria and Emily in a room, storming out to cool off. Maria called Officer Carter for help. Carter and Sophie arrived at the house shortly after, finding the front door locked. They entered through the back and restrained Victor, who resisted but was ultimately taken into custody. As Victor was escorted to the police station, he shouted that he had proof Maria was an imposter. At the station, Victor demanded to see the DNA results, only to be told they would take several more days. Frustrated, he declared that his private investigator, David Pratt, had critical evidence. But a constable informed Victor that David had gone missing, leaving him even more distraught. Maria, Sophie, and Emily soon arrived at the station. Emily ran to Maria, addressing her as Mom once again. Victor, now completely unhinged, shouted that Maria had hypnotized everyone around her. "This woman is dangerous," he yelled. Maria, trying to defuse the situation, explained that she had reported her pen drive stolen earlier that day. Victor revealed that he had the pen drive, further implicating himself. Officer Carter, now growing skeptical of Victor, decided to investigate further. At Carter's suggestion, the pen drive was decrypted by a forensic expert. However, the repeated attempts to access it had corrupted the files, rendering it useless. Victor became enraged, accusing Maria of masterminding a plot to destroy his life. As tensions escalated, Dr. Knight arrived with an urgent warning. She revealed that Victor's paranoia had been carefully documented and that he was a danger to those around him. She recommended that he be institutionalized within 48 hours unless his condition improved. Later that night, Victor received a call from David, who had resurfaced with what he claimed was a breakthrough. David explained that Maria's behavior and movements suggested she had been hiding significant secrets. According to David's findings, Maria had visited a remote location with Sophie multiple times and had been in regular contact with a mysterious third party. The following morning, Victor confronted Maria once again. She, seemingly calm, stated that she wanted a peaceful resolution. However, she shocked Victor by announcing her plan to leave Silver Ridge with Emily and start over abroad. "I can't live like this anymore," Maria said firmly. "Emily deserves a stable home, and this isn't it." Victor, enraged, lashed out and almost struck Maria, but stopped himself at the last moment. Maria called him out on his behavior, daring him to act in front of Emily. Later that day, Victor visited the police station and demanded Officer Carter arrest Maria. When Carter refused, Victor claimed he had one final piece of evidence, the DNA test. He believed the results would vindicate him and expose Maria as an imposter. But before Carter could respond, word came that Maria had filed for full custody of Emily in court. This only deepened Victor's paranoia, as he believed Maria's plan to ruin him was nearing its end. With time running out, Victor resolved to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Victor sat in the cold, sterile room of the police station, his head buried in his hands. The weight of paranoia and desperation pressed heavily on him. When the door creaked open and Officer Carter entered with Sophie, Victor didn't even look up. But then, trembling, he finally spoke, his voice raw and cracking. "She's not Maria," he said, barely above a whisper. "Maria is dead, and I killed her." The room fell silent, a heavy, suffocating stillness. Sophie gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Victor, what are you saying?" she managed to ask. Victor looked up, his face streaked with tears, his expression one of utter defeat. And then, as if a dam had burst, he began to recount the night everything changed. "It was my birthday," he said, his voice trembling. "Maria wanted to surprise me. The house was decorated, music playing. She'd been drinking. We both had. Then we started arguing. It was about Emily." He paused, swallowing hard. "Maria thought Emily should stay in boarding school. She said it was better for her mental health. I didn't agree. I wanted her home." Victor's breathing grew shallow as he continued, the words spilling out like a confession to his own conscience. "Things got heated. She started throwing things, glasses, plates. Then she grabbed a knife. I just wanted to stop her. I pushed her, and," his voice cracked, "she fell. She hit her head on the corner of the table, and she was gone." Sophie stared at him, her face pale and stricken. "Oh my God. Maria." Victor shook his head violently as if trying to shake off the memory. "I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I thought about Emily. What would happen to her if I went to jail? So I buried Maria deep in the forest, and the next day I reported her missing. He looked at Sophie, pleadingly. I thought I could keep it together. But then she came back. Maria came back, or I thought she did. But now I know. She wasn't Maria. Officer Carter, who had been listening intently, leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. After a long pause, he finally spoke. You're right about one thing, Victor, Carter said evenly. That woman isn't Maria. Victor froze, his confusion morphing into shock. What are you saying? Carter exchanged a glance with Sophie before revealing the truth. The woman in your house is Officer Catherine Ross. She was working undercover to uncover the truth about Maria's disappearance. Victor's jaw dropped, his eyes wide. Undercover, he whispered, barely comprehending. Carter nodded. We suspected foul play when Maria's car was found abandoned near the forest. Sophie told us about the tension between you and Maria, especially about Emily. We needed a way to bring the truth to light. That's where Catherine came in. Catherine had been part of an elaborate operation, Carter explained. The private investigator Victor had hired, a police informant feeding him false leads. The therapist, Dr. Susan Knight, also in on the plan, subtly planting doubts in Victor's mind. Victor's hands balled into fists. You manipulated me, he growled. Catherine, who had stepped into the room quietly, looked him square in the eyes. You manipulated everyone when you chose to cover up Maria's death. We only did what was necessary to give her justice. Victor's shoulders slumped as the full weight of his actions bore down on him. Tears streamed down his face as he murmured, It was an accident. I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted to protect Emily. Later, Emily was brought to the station to see her father. The young girl, unaware of her mother's fate, hugged Victor tightly, her voice trembling with confusion. Why are you leaving, Daddy? Did I do something wrong? Victor held her close, his heart breaking. No, sweetie, you didn't do anything wrong. I love you so much. Always remember that. As the officers escorted Victor away in handcuffs, Sophie and Catherine watched in somber silence. The truth had been revealed, but the victory felt hollow. Catherine turned to Carter, her voice heavy. Sometimes the hardest truths aren't the ones we uncover. They're the ones people hide from themselves. Back at home, Emily sat by the window, clutching a family photo from happier days. The weight of the tragedy loomed large over her, but she resolved to hold on to the memories of the love they once shared. Justice had been served, but at a cost that left wounds no one could easily heal.